So, the Supreme Court just ruled that border control can enter any home without a warrant and assault you, and you can't do anything about it. You will have no federal protections. And they did this with people who are in a 100-mile radius of the US border, which is around 60% of the US population, by the way. Here's the areas that are affected. So the overturning of Roe v. Wade, the gutting of protections of prisoners, the gutting of protections for black voters, the gutting of protections for queer people, the right to privacy, all of it. They're setting up the framework for fascism in this country.
So, by far and away, one of the most dangerous things about the Republican Party is that they know full well the position that they're in. They may scream to the world and scream to their audience that they're number one and that they're in such a great position, but they know that as the generations continue to advance forward, the country is going to turn more and more brown, and their homogenous base, who swallows up all their culture war nonsense, is going to continue to shrink. And that's why we've been seeing them going after the legal system. That's why we're looking at them state by state taking abortion away. That's why we're looking at the Supreme Court taking the extreme actions that they are while they have the imbalance. That's why moving into the upcoming elections, Republicans have been hiring far right wing activists to team up with local district attorneys so that they can cause chaos and uncertainty within elections moving forward, because they know that the only way for them to truly maintain power is to take the legal process away from us in full.
And to further prove my point, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a lot of fascist talking points that are being spewed by the political right at the moment. Things like the Great Replacement theory are eerily similar to the things that Hitler said about Jewish people before the Holocaust. The anti-queer sentiment from all over the United States, most obviously down in Texas, down in Florida, here in Missouri, that anti-queer sentiment is almost like the same as the anti-queer sentiment that they had in Nazi Germany. So I'm saying all of this because if you are a marginalized group within the United States, you need to be preparing yourself for a fascist takeover in this country.
On top of that, the Supreme Court just made it easier for wealthy donors to bankroll the pockets of incumbents while they're in office by changing loan laws that basically make it so now, while an incumbent is not campaigning, people can give them money and expect more in return than they could before. The Supreme Court also just made it more difficult for wrongfully convicted people in jail to be freed if DNA evidence shows that they actually didn't do X, Y, and Z. The Supreme Court more and more is taking away our ability to fight back. And that's why, especially, when we have such a lame duck Congress that's pretty much going to stay like that for quite some time, we have to get more and more focused on local elections and, pushing people to run, researching more and more so we know the types of people who are actually in these city positions, people who are aldermen, people who are on city council, your mayors. All of these people contribute the most to your daily lives politically and in terms of legislation. So while our Congress and Senate really can't get much of anything done, we have to really put our focus more and more on the local government.
And while Congress does nothing, Republicans and in different states all over the United States, even in Democratic states, are setting up the political framework to be able to do fascist things. So, how do you prepare for fascism? Well, we need to think about what the United States would look like in a fascist regime. The US in a fascist regime will be very, very, very similar to how they treated Black Lives Matter protests. They did things like lots of violence, militarized police. They got rid of activists' way of communicating, and they ignored all of your constitutional rights. So you need to prepare for that. This means you need to learn some self-defense. This means you need to get familiar with your mutual aid programs without the internet. This means you need to protect your internet privacy. This means that you need to learn how to grow your own food, and you need to be very active in your community so that your community knows you're growing food, and you need to know where your community is growing food and has resources like health resources and all of that as well.
Because listen, man, it's like, the January 6th hearings, we're looking at this right now. Fox News isn't covering, talking about like, oh, it's just nothing. They're just trying to make this up. Thousands of people migrated from all over the nation to swarm the heart of the nation, the Capitol, run up, all up in this building, all up in that building. I mean, think about if the roles were reversed in any type of way? Do you really think that the right wing or Republicans would be pretending like that was no big deal? I mean, look how they treated the protesters, for Black Lives Matter protesters, any types of protests for people, workers' protests, union protests, people coming together, the general public, period. Oh, look at that. Look at these people. It's anti democratic. Look at them looting. Look at them messing everything up. But when people run into the literal heart of the nation, and people get killed in the process of it. Oh, that's nothing. This is the type of stuff we see in third world countries. Meanwhile, they're the ones who are trying the hardest to turn the United States into a third world country.